وخير الخلق قدوتنا تعال وزر وشاركنا وقم بالخير سابقنا لقانا في ابن تيمية وخير الخلق قدوتنا لقانا في ابن تيمية وخير الخلق قدوتنا لقانا في ابن تيمية وخير الخلق قدوتنا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله وخليله وصفوته من خلقه نبينا وإمامنا وسيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سلك سبيله واهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. We're on the nullifiers of wudu, and the author rahimahullah ta'ala said وَالنَّوَاقِضُ فِي الطَّهَارَةِ الصُّغْرَى ثَمَانِيَةٌ. There's 8 nullifiers of wudu. الْخَارِجُ مِنَ السَّبِيلَيْنِ, anything exigent from the 2 private parts. وَالْفَاحِشُ مِنْ غَيْرِهِمَا, what exits from other than the 2 private parts, that's repulsive. The third one is وَزَوَالُ الْعَقْلِ بِغَيْرِ نَوْمٍ يَسِيرٍ جَالِسًا أَوْ قَائِمًا, the matters pertaining to sleeping. Then the 4th and 5th is وَمَسُّ الْفَرْجِ وَالْمَرْأَةِ لِشَهْوَةٍ, touching the private part and a woman with desire. Then the 6th one is وَأَكْلُ لَحْمِ الْإِبِلِ, eating the meat of a camel. The 7th one is وَالرِّدَّةِ. وَالرِّدَّةِ is apostasy. The 8th nullifier of wudu is wudu from washing the deceased. And we said that's from mufradat al-madhhab al-hanbali, and I explained what that means. And the summary is that it's not a nullifier because there's no proof, no clear, solid proof to indicate it's a nullifier. Then we took an additional nullifier, which is al-qahqaha fi as-salah, laughing in salah. It's among mufradat al-madhhab al-hanafi. And like the previous nullifier, the summary is it's not a nullifier because of the lack of proof, lack of clear, authentic proof to indicate it's a nullifier. Wudu from washing the deceased is among mufradat al-madhhab al-hanbali, just like wudu from eating the meat of a camel is. Laughing in salah is among mufradat al-madhhab al-hanafi. The 10th nullifier that we'll start on right now inshallah is among mufradat al-madhhab al-maliki. Al-wudu bil-shak, wudu when in doubt. You need to understand what we mean by doubt in order for you to understand this mas'ala. Someone positively made wudu, but he or she doubts whether they nullified that wudu. You ask the individual, or you ask yourself, would you be willing to give an oath that you made wudu? Without a doubt, yeah, I'll give it. Yeah, I did. I'm 100% sure I made wudu. There's no doubt about it. They're waiting for salah or they're in salah. The follow-up question is, would you give an oath that you nullified the wudu? And then the answer is, for this mas'ala, I'm in doubt. I'm in doubt whether I nullified my wudu or not. I cannot give an oath that I nullified my wudu. If he says, I give an oath I nullified wudu, there's no issue. You have to go make wudu. But he gave an oath that he made wudu. but he's doubtful whether he nullified it. That's the doubt that we're talking about here. That's the mas'ala here. Do you need to make wudu when you're in that type of doubt? The first opinion is that one's wudu remains intact whether he's in salah or outside of salah. And this is the opinion of the majority of the ulama. And it's one of two opinions within the madhab of the Malikiyya, the opinion that was related by Nafi'. Their proof for this is a very important principle of fiqh, or a foundation of fiqh, one of the foundations of fiqh. The principle is al-aslu baqa'u ma kan ala ma kan. Matters remain as they originally were, or worded differently, maybe even more clear, al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Certainty, yaqeen, la yazul, is not removed bil-shak, by doubt. That's one of the fiqh principles. Ulama gave fiqh principles a lot of time and attention because they're very important to a student of knowledge, let alone alim or faqih. When you know them, you can deduce from them rulings on fiqh masail. You can take rulings from those principles and apply them to many secondary fiqh masail. And the best way to describe them is what my father was telling me a few days ago. We were having a discussion that led to fiqh masail, nothing pertaining to this, something totally different, but a general, casual conversation, and it led to him speaking about principles of fiqh. And he said what would be probably the best way to explain it so you can understand what fiqh principles are. He said the sheikh, or a student of knowledge, is like a chef in this matter. The fiqh principles are like a recipe. It's like a recipe for the meal. The chef has the recipe. Applying the fiqh principle requires knowledge and talent, like applying the recipe to cooking. Knowing these fiqh principles will eliminate the need to memorize rulings on many fiqh masail. And it'll get you to quickly remember the rulings on many fiqh masail. Why? Because many masail fall under these principles. And rather than memorize countless, endless masail of fiqh, you can quickly remember them and their rulings by applying these fiqh principles to them. Knowing these principles gives you a strong fiqh foundation, and a faqih who knows them usually turns out to be creative and brilliant in his fiqh. In a way, they're very similar to the benefit of mutun. It stabilizes the fiqh masail in one's mind, and at the same time it broadens the scope of the faqih's understanding. It magnifies and broadens the fiqh status of a faqih. When one knows them, it keeps the faqih's manhaj in fiqh and in fatawa clear and consistent. When you gather and analyze fatawa of some juhal who think they're fuqaha or talabat ilm, the ones who haven't properly studied, you find a lot of inconsistencies when comparing the answers over time. And that's due to many reasons. Among the ways to eliminate that type of inconsistency is to master fiqh principles. Another very important benefit of these fiqh principles is they're helpful in deriving rulings that pertain to current events in masail that constantly arise. There's ulama gave them a lot of attention. Some devoted some books to them, like Al-Ishbah wal-Nadha'ir and Ta'sis al-Nazar. The fiqh principle that we're studying here today is al-yaqeen la yazulu bil-shak. Certainty, yaqeen, la yazul, is not removed, bil-shak, by doubt. This principle, this particular principle, is considered by some ulama to be among the 5 main top fiqh principles. Why? Because it applies to many detailed masail of fiqh. Many rulings of fiqh masail can be derived from this principle. Not just in this matter like wudu nullifiers. Many masail can be derived from this principle in the ibadat section as a whole. Like for example, the popular matter of doubting one's rak'at. Or for example, someone went to a store. He doubts if najasa was on the clothes he just bought. Are they tahir or must he wash them? Brand new clothes he just got from the store. Applying this principle, they're tahir. Because certainty of tahara doesn't get negated by doubts that they may be najis. This principle applies to other masail in the section of mu'amalat, in the section of talaq, like divorce, in the section of freeing slaves, in shahadat, in jinayat, and other sections of fiqh. Someone, let me give you another example. Someone owes another person money. By yaqeen, he borrowed $1,000. No doubt about that. He'll give an oath about it. The yaqeen is he borrowed that money. The yaqeen is that he owes that money. But he doubts whether he paid or not. The debt doesn't get negated by the doubts that he has of paying the money back. So he'll say, Wallahi, I borrowed from him money. Can you say, Wallahi, you paid him back? No, I doubt. It might be, might not. Suyuti said this principle applies in all sections of fiqh and applies to nearly 3/4 of fiqh masail, if not more. Where did the ulama come up with this fiqh principle and other fiqh principles? They deduced them from proofs. Like, for example, this principle. It's backed by the verse, وَمَا يَتَّبِعُ أَكْثَرُهُمْ إِلَّا ظَنَّ إِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. Most follow assumptions. And assumptions don't replace the truth. إِن يَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا الظَّنَّ وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. They follow assumptions. وَإِنَّ الظَّنَّ لَا يُغْنِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ شَيْئًا. Guesses or assumptions don't substitute the truth. Proof for it is in the hadith that we took many times. Hadith of Abbad ibn Tamim and his uncle, or similar to it, hadith Abu Huraira radiallahu anhum, لا ينفتل أو لا ينصرف حتى يسمع صوتا أو يجد ريحا. One shouldn't cease or end his salah if he doubts whether his wudu broke or not, unless he hears a sound or smells something. So it's backed by the Quran, by the Sunnah, and by the Ijma'. The fuqaha and ulama of usul agree on this principle. Al-Qarafi said that this principle is agreed upon by ijma'. Everything in shak is doubt. Everything in doubt is considered as if it doesn't exist and as if it's not there. Yaqeen, certainty. In hadath, one has yaqeen that he invalidated his wudu. Yaqeen in hadath, that one negated his wudu, means it's a hadath, it's negated. Yaqeen, certainty, one is on wudu, means he's on wudu. Doubts don't affect it. What's the level or certainty that we're talking about here? Can you make an oath? Yeah, I can make an oath I'm on wudu. Can you make an oath you negated the wudu? No, I can't. you're on wudu. That's the first opinion. If you're on yaqeen, you made wudu, but you're doubting whether you broke the wudu, you are on wudu. The second opinion is the opinion of the Malikiyah. It's one of two opinions, because they have an opinion that we mentioned was related by Nafi' with the first opinion. They said that if one doubts his wudu is nullified, that means it's nullified. He's not on wudu. Some Malikiyah branched off from that within this opinion, and they said only if it's outside of salah. Meaning, he doubts whether he nullified his wudu or not outside of salah, then he has to make wudu. In salah, it doesn't have an effect, and it doesn't nullify the wudu. Outside of salah, it does, not inside of salah. So like this opinion has like an A and B to it. We said it's among mufradat al-madhhab al-maliki. What's the rationale? They said tahara, wudu, purification is a condition for salah, which no one can disagree with. Doubts in such condition are effective and they nullify the tahara. They said doubts are effective in what's a condition to performing an obligation towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibadah is something you owe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what they're saying. Ibadah is something you owe Allah. It's your duty to perform all the conditions, fulfill them. And among them is tahara. And doubts affect those conditions. They're saying salah is a wajib. You owe it as an obligation towards Allah. A right upon you to give to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you have to give it with full yaqeen. The salah must be performed in full yaqeen. If you have doubts in its conditions, like tahara, you haven't performed your obligation towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in full yaqeen. Like the example I mentioned earlier. Similar to it. You owe someone money by yaqeen. You give an oath on it. But you doubt one day whether you paid him or not. Will you give an oath you paid? No, I can't. You need to pay him, because doubt that you paid doesn't overcome the yaqeen of the debt. Similar to it, they said like salah. Doubts in tahara for salah are effective, and they said unlike doubts in other matters like talaq or freeing slaves or zihar or other matters pertaining to nursing, they agree with the rest of the ulama that doubts are not effective. They go along with the rest of the ulama pertaining to those other matters. Now, the reason why some Malikiyah they also said tahara is easy, wudu is easy, and the nullifiers are many, so it's safer to make wudu. Now, the reason why some Malikiyah under this opinion distinguish between tahara inside salah and outside of salah, that doubts in salah will not affect it, but doubts outside of salah are effective, because they said the hadith that I mentioned earlier, hadith Abbad ibn Tamim, and similar to it is hadith Abu Hurairah. They said the hadith explicitly says one should not cease his salah if he doubts his wudu broke, unless he hears a sound or smells something. They're saying the hadith specifically says in salah. Correctly, the hadith does say in salah. So they're saying the hadith says in salah, it's in the context of someone in salah. So if he has the doubt in salah, doesn't nullify the wudu, unlike if it's outside of salah. Ibn Hajar correctly responded to this, and he said, what's a nullifier in salah is a nullifier outside of salah, just like the rest of the nullifiers. We don't have nullifiers in salah and other nullifiers outside of salah. A second response that can be added is that in salah was specified in the hadith because that's the majority of when the whispers of the shaitan occur. But the rule applies for doubts in salah and outside of salah. The rajih is clearly the jumhur. They're much stronger than the Malikiyya in this, because the principle that we mentioned, al-aslu baqa'u ma kana ala ma kan. Keep that principle in mind. من تيقن الطهارة وشك في الحدث فهو متطهر. What that means is, and that's a summary of everything we said today, whoever is on yaqeen, certainty in tahara, that he's on tahara, but doubts whether he negated his tahara, he is on tahara. من تيقن الطهارة وشك في الحدث فهو متطهر. ومن تيقن الحدث وشك في الطهارة فهو محدث. Whoever is not on tahara and doubts whether he made tahara, he is not on tahara. There's some follow-up notes pertaining to this nullifier that we'll discuss inshallah in the next class. Not only will you leave today with a detailed analysis of this fiqh mas'ala, but you leave learning a very, very important principle of fiqh and how it's used. And it'll help you in countless fiqh masail that may arise. Wallahu a'lam. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.